Hey, what's up, everyone? So, I just want to talk really quick about why it seems like so many different experts, labeled experts, especially in the government, always are getting things wrong when it comes to predicting what is supposed to happen with natural disasters, pandemics, things like that. And from what I've seen over the years, it's that the people who are in those positions tend to be extraordinarily myopic and are focused on the status of their positions because they are looking to level up within the government and to show that their work is worthy. They want to have a prediction that is so severe that it gets them notoriety because they help save the world or whatever. It's one of those things where you got to think about the incentives of someone who is applying to be a head of the CDC or is looking to be a director at the FDA or things like that. When you have these people who are in those positions, not because of their brilliance in providing people value, which you might find the case of someone who applies their scientific knowledge with other fields and more of a polymath. Maybe, for example, someone who comes up with ideas of how to diversify the genetics of different marijuana crops because they're like, oh, okay, I'm really good at genetics and I understand how I can apply that in different areas and provide value to people, things like that. The people who are in these positions, especially government and academic positions, that are not really based on providing others value, but seeming self-importance about trying to say, "Ooh, we know the future's bad, you need to listen to us," that kind of thing. It's just a whole different mindset that often has many gaps and holes in it because these are not people who think broadly about many different areas of life. They limit their variable analysis to something very narrow, and that's often the case in much of their modeling. Now, whether it could be climate, could be the number of people who are going to die from a spread of virus. And what happens most often is that these people, because they have their credentials in terms of their academic work and their narrow focus, because again, when you get a PhD, you're just really getting one tiny grain of sand on the beach of knowledge, proverbially. They think that they, because of achieving that height of knowledge, are just absolutely knowledgeable about every single other thing. And critical thinking and broad-based thinking, that's kind of a higher level thinking of putting and piecing together the big picture of many different areas of knowledge, totally separate, right? The idea of being like, oh, okay, I memorized a bunch of things, regurgitated them for tests to get through my master's degree and then to go to PhD level, is not the same as having inductive and deductive reasoning, thinking through logic and what is truth and how do you find it, and thinking through all the different ways that there could be influences and variables within a certain field of study. Those things are completely separate. And unfortunately, a lot of these people who are central planners in these positions think that they have it all figured out because they're just looking at one little narrow piece. And then they end up becoming wildly wrong because they make models or estimations that in no way, shape, or form factor in all the diversity of human action or all the possibilities of, again, the entire planet potentially, different variables that could affect the outcome of something. And so, unfortunately, that is a big problem for the rest of humanity, is if you have these people who are central planners and think that they know exactly what's going to happen and can control for it and try to essentially plan solutions, whether that's telling everybody that they have to lock down and wear masks, or they have to get rid of their cars and can't travel anymore because otherwise the earth is going to heat up, everyone's going to die. You end up having very dangerous outcomes. And really the only solution that is both ethical and effective is freedom. That is freedom of choice, because you need the diversity of human action in order for all different people to be able to use and share information, work together, and come up with solutions. That is the only way to solve problems, is through freedom of information, knowledge, and business. And if you shut down those things, if you shut down solutions by saying, this is the only solution allowed, or if you shut down people's ability to communicate, travel, trade, engage in commerce on a global scale, you completely disrupt the ability for people around the world to come up with solutions by working together or relying on each other's knowledge, sharing knowledge, and coming up with solutions. And I think that's what we've seen here, especially with the corona situation. I mean, again, from the beginning, I talked a little bit less about this before in another video, but I'll just repeat it again. The government was already shutting down solutions. They were stopping early testing. The government, that is through the FDA, was banning solutions for anything you can imagine, really. People coming up with testing kits to coming up with hand sanitizers. You know, there was distilleries that wanted to make that stuff, and there's regulations that stopped them. And you know, during all this time, back when the virus actually had been spreading, which is in January, February, that was actually when it was going around because of the Chinese New Year travels. And especially with Wuhan, there's like 5 million people who had traveled. So it was already over at that point. It had already been spread. And past that point, the best that you could do is just, okay, people are going to be sick, and you just got to deal with it based on individual risks and individual abilities. Instead, of course, the government just has a one-size-fits-all solution. Everybody shuts down. Everybody, you know, loses their jobs, instead of saying, oh, okay, well, those who are most at risk, elderly with other types of issues going on with their bodies, they might want to just, you know, see people less, maybe wear masks, this or that. Everybody else, by and large, is fine. There's no way to have that if the government says, oh, everybody must follow this one-size-fits-all. So unless this changes, unless freedom is brought back to the forefront, not only will there not be good solutions, but there's going to be massive poverty, as has already been seen. You can't shut down trade, travel, and people's ability to come up with solutions and think everything's just going to be perfectly fine. Giving people money, printing money, this or that, doesn't actually make people provide more value, right? If you just are given money, you can consume, you can spend that money, but it didn't mean that people who receive the money are providing value to others. And again, if money is just the subjective values being communicated and expectation that someone else could provide value, but there's nobody providing value to others, in other words, nobody's working to do something for someone else, whatever it is, then you just have consumption and loss. And this is all going to come to a very dangerous head once the student loans are coming back into effect, once the rent and mortgage hiatuses come to their fruition, because again, you still owe the money, it's going to come due. So there's no way to ignore those factors. It's going to be really hurting in 2021. And if the government tries to just forgive that or whatever, I mean, again, there's no economic way around that. If the government tries to just simply outright forgive those things or whatever, then prices will rise to offset that for the losses. Again, in all goods and services, if that's all just forgiven and everything's gone, there will be repercussions, which is the rise in prices to offset the losses, which still screws everybody in the end anyway. The only way to get back to prosperity is to remove the government's interference and to allow people to have more freedom in order to provide more value to others. You know, economic freedom, of course, of note here. But it's very scary. And if people do not rise up and work together to stop these Orwellian restrictions, they're just going to keep running with this. That is, those in the government are going to keep running with this until people are completely destitute and dependent on the government. Because that is the ultimate goal, in my opinion, is they want people to basically be completely subservient and reliant on the government for everything. They want, you know, people to be like, oh, you're going to get your food, you're going to get your internet, you're going to get whatever it is, you know, that you have or, you know, could want, that's going to come from the government. It doesn't mean it's good, of course. It just means they want that central control, that nobody can imagine life without central planners giving them whatever it is that you may need or desire. Of course, in the end, that ends up destroying everybody because one-size-fits-all policies ends up eliminating innovation and opportunities. So, and if you don't know why, again, because in order for opportunities to arise and new advances to happen, you need freedom of people trading and choosing as things evolve with, you know, new products and inventions, and letting that which is best rise to the top. And if the government's making one-size-fits-all policies and you don't have competition, well, then you don't have new and better things beyond the scope of the central planners' ideas of what's best. So it's very scary. So hopefully, if you're watching this, you just are realizing how important it is to encourage others to say, you know, screw the mask mandates and the shutdown orders and lockdowns, and work hard to undo that and support all action that gets rid of these restrictions on trade and travel. Again, it doesn't mean I want people to be sick or that, oh, you know, it's not a threat. Yeah, I mean, of course, like, any sickness is a threat, but you still live your life. You don't say, I'm never going to go out again because there's a flu or cold or this or that. You say, okay, well, what are the relative risks? And you take your own individualized precautions. And that's how it should be for everything. It's your own individual risk profile. Again, if you're more at risk, you take more precautions. If you're not, well, then again, you go out and you work and you live life. But having everybody be miserable is not the solution. And as we've seen already, just so many different very deleterious effects have taken place because of the central planning, from people missing their medical screenings, that they need to catch cancer, heart conditions, things like that. People that had elective surgeries and things like that, but actually it's elective, but if you don't get it done in time, it can lead to death or disfigurement. Suicide increase, drug overdose increase, because again, if you're losing your purpose in living, which is maybe to see friends or if you're elderly, maybe seeing family. If you had a job that just kind of keeping you going through life, and that was your purpose, and now you don't have work, you feel very isolated and terrible, and it's absolutely horrible. So I think it's very unempathetic to think that the economic aspects don't have human life costs to them, in terms of people's quality of life. Poverty kills, of course, and so when you're not having trading, guess what, all the poorest people are now suddenly running out of food and not having job opportunities, even travel tourism anywhere in the world. It's like, oh, okay, well, there goes all the money that someone would make to sustain themselves because there's nobody traveling. So it just really needs to end. So just wanted to throw that out there, and I will talk to y'all later. All right.